Today I'm going to show you 3 different ways of how to dry fire your Shadow 2. First, the most common of dry firing your Shadow 2 is the double action only. But before we pull the trigger, we have to make sure that the gun is empty, safe to do the dry fire. First we have to check the chamber, it's empty, no magazine inserted, and now we're ready and safe to pull the trigger. Safe. So the most common dry fire at the beginning, at first, you have to pull the trigger, double action only. Draw and fire, double action. Draw and fire, double action. Well, nothing's wrong with it if you're going to practice a double action. But the thing is, you're not only destroying the firing pin spring of your gun, but also shortening the life of your firing pin and the hammer itself. So most of the time in the range, if you shoot single action, not double action. In the real course of fire, in production division, you only pull your trigger double action only once at the beginning of the course of fire. So you have to practice in such a way that your trigger finger will familiarize the travel of a single action pull, but which it does it 99% of the time in the range. But how will we manage to practice the trigger pull travel this much only? So the second way of dry firing your gun is to open the hammer and then put the safety on. In that way, if you pull the trigger, the hammer will not fall. But still, you won't be able to, like, if you can pull the trigger, you can practice do like this and slapping the trigger, no problem. But the thing is, like, you don't get a feel of a single action thing like this. And this is how we come up with a technique on how to dry fire a single action with your Shadow using a piece of paper. So what we are going to do is get a piece of paper, crumple it, make it a small ball, and place it in between the hammer and the firing pin in such a way it will prevent the hammer to fall completely. So in this way, you have to pull the trigger, and if you don't feel the single action feel, like, push the hammer forward while pulling the trigger, push the hammer up until you can hear, like this way. So in this way, you can adjust you can adjust the trigger pull based on your preference. You can make lighter, or you can make a little bit heavier by adjusting the hammer's position either forward or backward. So in this way, I can now practice my my single action with a reset on it. So this is not only like practicing your single action trigger pull, trigger control, by which you're doing it in the range 99% of the time, but you're also preventing and extending the life of your internal parts.